Bessemer. I am the CSA Program Manager, and I am not sure if I'm showing up on the screen for you yet, but I am here to join Patricia in welcoming you all back to the FY21 school year. There's lots of new things, maybe too many new things for us all to absorb, but we wanted to share, I think, what is exciting news about options that are available through the CSA program. And so part of what we're doing today is just giving an overview. It's an information session about what we're calling sort of new evidence-based treatments for case managers. They're not new. These are services and treatments that have been available in other parts of the nation and internationally for a number of years. But through a happy set of circumstances, we were able to get a number of these up and running in our community and have packaged them in a way that we wanted to make sure you all were aware of what these options were. So some of the happy circumstances are there was some federal funding that is coming into play. It's the Family First Prevention Services Act. And the FFPSA was the impetus for the Virginia General Assembly to put some training dollars together and offer training grants to providers in our community to learn these evidence-based treatments. And so pre-COVID, this money was available, various providers applied, got the training grants, and now they're up and running. And now that COVID has interfered, we're really lucky that we got that in when we did. So today's session is really an opportunity to learn about these things. So Patricia, if you go to the next slide for me. Okay, in today's session, we want to just cover a couple of basic things. So what are these new treatments that are available? How do you decide which ones to use? And then what are your funding options? And so really simple, informational, and I just want to also kind of caution you that we're not going to be able to explain in depth and detail about what each individual treatment is. So we're going to be playing a few very short videos from YouTube that give a little bit more information about what three of these treatments are anyway. And the videos were ones that we just found, and we picked them because they were good at explaining what the intervention is. And they're also short, but they come from different places. So one of them I think is from Kentucky or something. And so you'll hear them talk about a treatment facility in Kentucky. So just ignore that part and focus on her description of what the intervention actually is. And again, we picked them because they were short, and I would encourage you, if you are very curious about these interventions and want to learn more, there's actually a bunch of interesting YouTube videos that often have parents who are explaining their experience, so that's a resource for you. On our next slide, I want to just focus on we'll start off by just talking about what the interventions are that are for adolescents. And the new interventions that we have up and running are multisystemic therapy, or MST, functional family therapy, or FFT, and then a core competency approach to cognitive behavioral therapy that treats anxiety, depression, substance use, trauma, and conduct problems. And if any of you had a chance to go to the George Mason Training Consortium that's been offered the last 2 years, you would have learned the core competencies, which is based on a cognitive behavioral therapy model. So we wanted to share that information as well. Our home-based providers and local clinicians, like at the CSB, and outpatient therapists were invited to participate in that. So we are making sure that people are aware of that particular development as well. So let's start off by talking about MST. The MST on the next slide, slide number 7, is the information we want to share, and then we'll play a quick video, is that the National Counseling Group is now providing MST. They got one of the training grants, and they went through this program, and the good news about that is it costs about $60,000 to become trained in these models. And they are going through training and fidelity monitoring by the National MST Services kind of corporation. I call them the mothership. And you have to maintain your certification in this skill. So It's a very intensive intervention that was designed for youth who are often involved with the juvenile justice system and who are at risk of community or legal sanctions related to their behavior. So I don't really want to just say juvenile delinquency, but that's kind of who the original population was that it was designed for. And so if you see a kid who's moving into the area of delinquency and acting out in ways that could get them into trouble with the law and with the court, you can consider MST for them. And so some of the issues for them would be their peer group and acting out in the community. So the multi-systemic therapy part of it means that they're not just working on the family system, they're working on community, school, peers, so across the systems that the child is involved in. They really are very much about engagement. So the kids who are involved with MST may not want to participate in treatment, and they emphasize a lot about engagement. On our website, on the CSA site, we have an evidence-based treatment page, and we have some resources that you can click on, and we have a referral form for NCG. Now I'm going to ask Patricia to go ahead and queue up our video and show you a video about MST services.
For systems interested in implementing an evidence-based program to serve high-risk youth, MST delivers superior clinical results for families at a dramatic cost savings for communities worldwide. According to a study published in the Journal of Family Psychology, communities saw an ROI of up to $23.59 for every dollar spent on MST services and up to $200,000 in net benefits per youth. MST features the largest body of evidence by far of successful interventions for very high-risk youth. And MST is the only such intervention where results have been repeatedly demonstrated by independent research teams. As a result, MST represents the lowest investment risk of any youth intervention program. Communities saw a reduction in incarceration, mental health services, and crime rates. The New Mexico Children, Youth and Families Department reported a savings of $134 million by using MST. And Penn State University reported a savings of $50 million for the state of Pennsylvania via MST. MST is more cost-effective than alternative treatments, in part because of its built-in suite of services at no additional cost. Alternative programs outsource these services, which are an incremental expense for communities of up to $23,000 per youth. 90% of youth treated by MST complete the program, while only 50% of youth complete alternative treatment models. A higher MST completion rate means a lower investment risk for communities. To ensure successful clinical outcomes, MST therapists spend up to 300% more time within the youth ecology versus alternatives. MST therapists work in the home, school, and community and are on call 24/7 because crises can't be scheduled. Research demonstrates that MST benefits the entire family. Siblings of youth treated by MST saw a 40% reduction in overall arrest rates and a 55% reduction in felony arrest rates. Caregivers of youth treated by MST saw a 94% reduction in felonies. Because MST yields better outcomes for the entire family, communities realize a savings of up to $8,000 per family member. Research shows that MST reduces criminal behavior over the course of decades, not months. No alternative treatment is able to comparably demonstrate such long-lasting results. According to a study published in the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology, youths who received MST had 33% fewer days incarcerated over 22 years. These enduring benefits enhance ROI for communities. MST is the clear choice when selecting an evidence-based intervention for high-risk youth. Blueprints for Healthy Youth Development, hosted by the University of Colorado Boulder, is an independent registry which rates youth development programs. Out of the 1,400 programs that Blueprints has reviewed, MST is the only high-risk youth intervention program that has received the top rating, Model Plus. Contact us today to learn how MST can deliver positive outcomes and a significant return on investment for your community. Email at info@mstservices.com or by phone 84.
Oh, yep. That video, obviously you don't need to email them. We have it already in our community, and we are really excited about that opportunity. So if you wind up working with a youth who is, you're concerned about the peer group and delinquent type behavior, MST would be an option. We've also presented this to our court staff so that they are available, know that it's available as well. So the next service that I would like to mention to you is functional family therapy. And FFT is being offered by actually 3 providers in our community. So we have a wealth of FFT. National Counseling Group is offering FFT, and they have Spanish-speaking therapists. And Family Priority was the recipient of one of the training grants, and UMFS is also offering FFT in our community. So to me, in my opinion anyway, FFT is a little bit broader in terms of who it might serve, but the emphasis is on the family unit. So it's really focusing on the interactions between the members of the family, which means there has to be a family. So for children who are in foster care, who are living with foster parents, this might not work for them unless they are very connected to them, and that's a more of a permanent type placement. We also are thinking about functional family therapy for situations where the youth is having some trouble with coming to school, where there may be a need for the family to come around that child and offer more support and structure for that child to participate in their schooling. We are going to play you a quick video, but this is one where it is from another community, and it just gives you a better sense than I can provide you with about what FFT is about. And it is focused on the family. It's a family therapy intervention. And on our website, we have some links to information sheets and referral forms. So here's the video.
At University of Kentucky. Today I want to tell you about an evidence-based, well-established treatment option for youth and families who are suffering the ill effects of substance abuse and related issues. Despite having branched out all over the states and internationally, it's a relatively new program to Kentucky, and I and several of my colleagues here in the department have been learning and practicing functional family therapy. FFT has been proven in numerous settings to be effective for the treatment of youth with a range of risky behaviors, things like criminal activity, out-of-control behaviors at home or at school, violence, substance abuse, and others. Through the Kids Recovery Grant, we've had the opportunity to get certified in this treatment protocol so that it will be offered here permanently. The treatment is open to youth and families who are concerned about a new or existing substance abuse and/or other problem behaviors in adolescence. Myself personally, having worked with teens in trouble for the past 13 years, I know the difficulties that many families and institutions face in trying to find help that works. I've found that this treatment approach offers a viable alternative to more intensive or long-term individual treatment options. For example, one family I'm working with right now has been in outpatient therapy and psychiatric care for about a decade with their son. And this is the first time that the parents report that they are involved in the treatment working on their own part, which is a subtle but important difference that makes FFT unique and separate from previous approaches that may be focused more on teaching parents skills that might help them parent their adolescent differently. This family, for example, has been successful in changing a pattern of interacting that's made working together much more feasible. In general, FFT focuses on removing blame and negativity and replacing that with an alliance between all the family members and the therapist to identify and implement new skills that work for them to accomplish their common goals. As you can imagine, it's not uncommon that everybody in a family wants for an adolescent to become independent and self-sufficient, and they all have different ideas of getting there. Perhaps anger, blame, and the hurt it has caused have kept them from working together. using FFT and learning conflict management skills and problem solving in ways that fit each family's unique values, culture, and style makes working together possible. The primary distinction that sets this approach apart is the focus on the family. Everyone participates in each session after the initial interview, and most interventions last for about 12 to 16 sessions once per week. First phase is focusing on understanding problems and issues and patterns that have the youth and family stuck and getting motivated to make the changes. Then we identify specific behaviors to target in the pattern that's going on. We learn the skills and tailor them exactly to your particular family and work on changing those patterns and things that are getting in the way. Everyone in the family learns something new they can do differently to help in the second phase, and then we work on generalizing those skills to other settings, the community, the school, where interactions with peers and other things that people are concerned about. It's been a really good fit for me, and if you or a family you know is suffering with some of these issues, check out our website for more information to find out more about our clinic and about functional family therapy.
Okay, so again, just a brief video that gives you a little bit of a flavor of what functional family therapy might seem like for a family. And we're excited to have this opportunity in our community, partly because it's not that we haven't had family therapy before, but when you're doing a model to fidelity, there is an extraordinary amount of supervision and intense monitoring that goes on, and coaching and supervision for the therapist. So they are really hoping that this becomes a very effective approach to working with families, where you really think that the parents and the family were to come together, it would make a pretty big difference in the child's behavior. You can tell that there's a slight overlap, or there is an overlap between the type of youth that are described that would be appropriate for MST and the type of youth who are served by FFT. But I think for me anyway, my takeaway is that the kids who are being served by MST are a little bit more on kind of conduct disordered, and the FFT kids, we can use that for kids who are maybe more anxious or school refusing, maybe have a history of trauma where you're really trying to improve the functioning of the family. So there are differences, but I think we'll tease that out a little bit more over time. So on our next slide, I would just like to mention a couple of interventions that we have in our community as well. And these actually can serve a broader age range. We have had, through Healthy Minds Fairfax, a training consortium with George Mason that I mentioned before, and have supported through that effort the training in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, so TFCBT. And we are really hoping that more of the therapists who went through that training will go ahead and get certified. So we're really looking to expand not just people who've been trained in the model, but who actually are now certified. There are TFCBT providers in our community who are available to serve adolescents and adults who have trauma as a primary referral need. The other service that we're beginning to provide information about, again, not a new treatment, and many of you, I can see in the chat, are very aware of DBT and a version for adolescents, DBT-A. We are identifying a few private practices in our community who offer DBT. Therapists might also have DBT skills that they interweave into their outpatient work. Our understanding is that Inova Keller will be developing a DBT program for adolescents in the future. And we hope that will be sooner rather than later. I would encourage everyone, if you're not familiar with DBT, to look into that and learn a little bit more about who would be served by that. It's a little bit bigger than the scope of our training today. I am trying to work with Keller to see if they will put together a training for us in the next couple of months. So keep your eyes out for a training announcement about that. All right, on to the next slide. These are two interventions for young children. So for those of you who are working with children in the elementary schools, I think it's really exciting that we're now able to offer PCIT, parent-child interaction therapy. And PCIT is for children from the ages of 2.5 to 7. So your kindergartner and first graders, or maybe if you're working with a family and they have a younger sibling where there are behavioral issues, PCIT might be a good resource for them. We'll talk about PCIT in just a minute. The next treatment that we wanted to raise your awareness to is Match ADTC. That is a bit of a mouthful. Match ADTC is for younger children who have issues with anxiety, depression, trauma, and conduct. That's what the ADTC stands for. And with the George Mason Training Institute, the folks at the CSB and also local clinicians were trained in that model. So let's move on to the next slide where we can look at a little bit more detail about PCIT. And here's the age range. And I just wanted to state that this is a parent training approach, not a class. It's not like a course. You are actually meeting with therapists and your child and learning specific techniques, behavioral techniques, and the therapist is coaching the parent with these positive parenting practices and child management skills in vivo. So they usually have a bug in the parent's ear, and the therapist has a microphone, and the therapist is behind a two-way mirror and is coaching the parent during the session in utilizing the skills and getting to mastery. These weekly in-office sessions allow the parent to learn the skills and practice them with homework throughout the week and get up to a level of mastery. So it is an in-office rather than a home-based service. The intervention lasts about 16 weeks. There's 2 phases. The first part is the positive parenting techniques, and the second phase is where you're working on the behavioral issues that were why the child was referred. A typical child receiving PCIT would be a child who's often tantruming, oppositional, refusing to follow rules, and may have difficulty in the structured environment of school and certainly having trouble at home. So the parent is probably experiencing a lot of acting out with their child and is really struggling to know how to address that young child behavior. Whining, fussing, refusing, and kind of tantruming to the point where a child might not be able to go to a preschool or a school setting. That's kind of the level at which a PCIT is often referred. It can be used in other ways, but and for other children, but the primary, the way it was designed was for children with oppositional defiant disorder and ADHD. And again, PCIT, like a lot of treatments I see in your chat, people are asking about it. There's a lot of ways people are being creative about the way they deliver service, and I'm just kind of describing that the typical way PCIT is delivered is in an office-based clinic setting with like a once-a-week therapy. And our provider for that, you can click on to the next slide, and our provider is Phillips. Phillips Family Partners was able to receive that VDSS training grant. They are looking for referrals now for young children who are in need of this service. They can accept Medicaid and insurance, I believe, and also CSA funding. It is right now with just English-speaking therapists. We have on our website the brochure, a flyer, and the referral form. And we're also going to play you a quick video about PCIT.
One car down.
You did it! You knocked it down! Good job!
Nice label, praise. We're becoming more and more involved in this play.
These parents and their children are learning how to interact, how to communicate more effectively, and how to transform their relationships and their lives for the better.
You're doing a great job playing gently with the toys.
They are participating in Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, or PCIT, at the University of Miami. The program is for families with children who display behavioral problems that parents are unable to cope with on their own. What makes PCIT unique is that therapists coach parents through an earpiece, teaching de-escalation methods and positive interaction that result in improved behavior. It's called life therapy, and the outcome can be life-changing.
He was having tantrums on the floor and stuff like that. With this program, they put a little earpiece in your ear. She's watching you. You're seeing, okay, we're interacting together, and she gives me tips on, oh, you should do this, or just ignore right now, or right now you should try to distract.
If their kids are getting into trouble at school, or if they're having difficulties listening at home, our job is to help them be able to relate to their kids better and also learn more effective discipline strategies.
Funded by the Children's Trust, the program works with families for free and for as long as it takes. These live therapy sessions through one-way privacy glass are helping Erica Wooden discover new and better ways to relate to her son, Cornell.
Before, it used to be so much frustration between both of us because we couldn't communicate with each other. He used to try to express things to me that I didn't know he wanted. So it's more joy is me being able to figure out what he wants now. Tantrums have declined, so I don't feel bad at all when I have to take him somewhere, because I know a tantrum is not going to occur because I use these skills with him.
Let's focus on describing his behavior.
Good job building the block.
So that's a nice label, praise.
When psychologists start working with a family, the child is often described as being out of control, and parents are at their wits' end. Then, in just 3 of 4 sessions, everyone begins to see improvement.
There are moments during the course of therapy where you can see where it happens. So you can see, I remember 5 weeks ago, this would not be happening. You wouldn't be smiling at you wouldn't find this fun.
I like when we work together.
It changed our lives. It helped make Matthew listen better to me, help me understand how to treat his behaviors that I was seeing, and it really helped both of us.
By teaching parents how to relate to their children through play and other techniques and discipline in more positive ways, PCIT is reducing the risk of child abuse and helping to strengthen bonds between children and the parents who love them.
It's not an easy road up front, but that initial investment will pay dividends for that child's lifetime.
The work that we do changes families and changes lives, but it also changes us as we grow and benefit so much from it as well.
For this experience in total, I would definitely give it 10 stars. It's so much of a blessing to have.
I always like to see that video. Everybody seems so happy afterwards. I also just want to kind of comment that, we all know that if you catch kids earlier and you turn things around.
The following video is a mock demonstration of Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, or PCIT, a well-known empirically based practice.
So I think if we can catch children earlier and really help parents when the children are young with those acting out behaviors, maybe we won't have as many children who need MST and FFT in the future. So I just want to encourage you all that we often don't see a lot of young children being referred to CSA, except by the Department of Family Services. And if children are really struggling in those early years of school, this could actually really help. And there are private providers who also do PCIT in the area, so not everybody is going to need to go to CSA for that. But we just wanted to let folks know that this is a new service, and Phillips is really looking for referrals. So if you have anybody, as school gets started or as you're talking to parents, then please feel free to explore that. Okay. The next slide that we have is a little bit about MATCH ADTC. I always feel like that's such a mouthful. What MATCH stands for is the Modular Approach to Treatment of Children for Anxiety, Depression, Trauma, and Conduct Problems. And it's very similar to the core competencies that we talked about earlier. It's a set of skills that are kind of modular-based treatment, and depending on the needs of the child, you are matching the strategy and the technique or the need of the child. So that is something that was supported by our training consortium with George Mason through Healthy Minds Fairfax. And again, our CSB partners have been trained in this, and a variety of outpatient therapists. You can ask them whether or not they were trained in match. George Mason is also doing supervision with people, so we're following up trying to get people to a level of proficiency with these skills. It is based on cognitive behavioral therapy and has been shown to be highly effective, and it's used in various parts of the country. So again, this is not one that CSA particularly pays for specifically, but it's something to be aware of that is now offered in our community by people who've gone through the training process. Okay, next slide. In this area, what I wanted to just mention is we have a handout with all 7 of these things that are all on one sheet of paper that we'll share with you, because we're really kind of saying, boy, there's a lot of options out there, and these are just the newer ones that we're raising your awareness to. It's going to be hard for all of our case managers to know which one to pick and when. We really believe that it's important for all of us to be as educated and informed about these options as possible, and try to help our families become more educated and informed as well. There are parents out there who are taking their children to therapy. They may not know what questions to ask or how to find a good therapist. So it's really kind of a bigger challenge than just what we're facing here. Our messaging out to everyone is let's start doing this. We need to start learning about them and increasing our proficiency by using these interventions and figuring out when it works best. We're going to learn together. I have heard from all the providers that we've been talking to who are very excited about learning these new skills that they are more than happy to talk to you. They will come to your, virtually come to your service planning meeting. They're also happy to talk to the family. So if you have a parent who's a little bit on the fence about what they want to do, you can actually just see whether the provider would be willing to have a kind of a quick call with them. We are hoping that our mental health folks, our CSB reps, will be able to also provide some of that guidance. And I know many of you are actually very well-trained clinicians yourselves as LCSWs, and people have private practices. So we're really hoping that we can bring that expertise to our team-based planning process. Our UR staff are willing to help and consult. And another little safeguard here is that the providers themselves really shouldn't be taking an inappropriate referral, because they are being monitored for their outcomes and fidelity. So MST and FFT and PCIT, they do an assessment and they make sure that the child is appropriate before they accept the referral. So it's going to be a little bit of how we make these decisions of who to match them up with. Okay, next slide. I think my primary message for you all today is that the things that I've mentioned can be funded by CSA, but as is typical for CSA, you have to start off with looking at whether or not the family has insurance and whether or not they can get the service through their own means first. And I'm not sure whether this is happening yet, but Medicaid is in the process of expanding the array of services that they are going to fund. COVID and some of the concerns about the state's budget may have an impact on Medicaid making some changes, but it was the plan that FFT, MST, and PCIT were going to be funded by Medicaid. So I would just say to you, when you're talking to the providers, you can find out whether or not the family's insurance or Medicaid will cover. You can always make a referral to CSA. And then for those children who are involved with the Department of Family Services, we are anticipating that at the end of January of 2021, this new law, the Family First Prevention Services Act, will come into effect, and children who are involved with child welfare can be funded by some Title IV dollars. They have to be case managed by the staff from DFS, the child welfare staff, like PPS staff, in order to be eligible, and they'll go through an eligibility process for that funding stream. But what's really exciting is that we have multiple ways of funding these services. We have an array of evidence-based interventions and all the options of funding, including CSA. All right, next slide. I wanted to just raise this issue to you all that one of our evidence-based treatment providers talked about when to make the referral. And so this slide is just a little bit of a reminder that, and these are intended to be kind of concurrent, these two lines here. You're doing your planning, you're making your referral, and at the same time, while you're doing that planning and working on the referral, you're getting your authorization for CSA funding. Once you get your authorization, you're making the referral to the provider. So kind of these things are happening concurrently. Get your purchase order, and then the service can start. The providers were just sharing with us that if they get the referral and you haven't even submitted to CSA yet, there seems to be this really big gap of time, and that really kind of concerned them. So we wanted to say to people, when you can talk to them in advance and make sure that it's an appropriate service, that's part of your planning process, but don't actually send them an official referral until you've at least submitted your paperwork to CSA for the authorization. And that way, those two things stay close in time. All right, next slide. I want to briefly mention some issues. I think I can see it in the chat that many of you are aware that some of these services are so intensive that you don't bundle, you don't create kind of confusion for the family by having more than one intervention going on at the same time. So very specifically with MST, their model is so intensive that they don't really want any other service to be combined. So if a child is going through the MST program, which is about 4 months long, that would be the only intervention that we would ask of them, the child and the family. And then after that intervention, there may be some additional aftercare that would be recommended, but during the course of MST, it wouldn't be combined with anything. FFT, those providers have told us that there are times when it might be appropriate for the child to have an individual service, maybe have an individual therapy. But you always want to be mindful of the number of things that we're asking of parents and youth when they're going through these intensive interventions. But FFT is not as strict as MST about being done solo. Then another comment that we've seen from people is that there have been some times where outpatient seemed to be the appropriate level of care, but the child and family were not responding to that, or they were not able to come in for the sessions. And you might want to then bump up to another one of these specialized interventions if the family doesn't seem to be responding well to outpatient. And then the other just kind of service planning comment is, it is appropriate as well to transition from one of these intensive interventions to something that's slightly less intensive. And again, part of the service planning is for us to really understand what the needs of the child and family are and do our best to match them with the service. So a child who might be really acting out and unstable, if they go through maybe an MST or an FFT, maybe once they stabilize, then they would be more willing to try the TFCBT or an individual service to address anxiety, depression, or trauma. So again, this is all up to you all as the service planning group to try to make sense of some of these, but here's a little bit of just guidance that we've learned so far about what can and can't be combined. Okay, next slide. All right, we're coming to our end here. And at this point, I just want to say to you all, there's an amazing wealth of information on YouTube. Obviously, you need to kind of be careful about what videos you're looking at, the quality or who produced it. But we were able to find a number of really interesting videos that could be really helpful. And you might even find some, or the ones that we've used, that would be helpful to share with parents, so they would get a flavor for what these interventions are. Again, we're all about helping parents make a good choice for what their child needs. There are many resources, so FFT and MST have their own websites, and you can go on and get information sheets from them. There's a website, Effective Child Therapy, that provides a lot of information about matching services to the youth. And we have put a page up on our website that has links to some of these materials. And we've also created a one-pager, and I will ask Patricia to pull up this document that we will provide to you all that is showing all 7 of these on one page with the brief description, the referral criteria, exclusionary criteria, and a little bit about how CSA will approve it in terms of what the authorization might look like. So some of these interventions are a daily authorization. So MST and FFT are a daily rate. And some of them are like an outpatient 1 hour a week. And so that just gives you a little bit of information about what your CSA authorization would look like. So again, the one pager is going to be made available to you all. It's kind of a cheat sheet where you can see them all laid out together. And we want to give you all as many tools as we possibly can to just help you sort through this wonderful new array of options that we can make available to our community. I'm going to pause here and just see if there's anyone who has any additional questions. I'm going to look at the chat and see if there's anything that you all want to ask us before we wrap this particular part up. Patricia is showing you on the screen what our page looks like. It's got a link to those videos that we showed you, and we are very excited. And I will also tell you a little comment about sustainability, that sometimes what happens is that you put these services together and people don't make a referral. And then the provider is not getting any business, they're not getting trained, they're not able to certify, and the services go away because they're not being used. So and a few of you asked questions about some of the kind of enhanced or specialized versions of these treatments. We're not going to be able to grow these programs unless we're using them. So I just really encourage you all, please explore them and give them a try if you have a family that seems to be appropriate. So sometimes we have our choice of, home-based, or which isn't, it's not always clear what the home-based provider's model is or what that intervention is going to look like. It's more of a non-specific approach. The rule of thumb is if you have a child you think would be appropriate for some of these evidence-based interventions, refer to that first. Do that first rather than start with a non-specific home-based. And I really do hope that you all are able to benefit on behalf or make those referrals. And I'm reading one of the notes in the chat about transportation services, and I would like you all to be reminded that CSA does actually fund transportation as well. So if it was a situation where we needed to get a child to Phillips for PCIT, they're located in Annandale, we would be able to purchase some transportation for them for these clinical services and translation. And then again, nowadays people are trying to use telehealth as best they can. So we're in kind of a it's a moving target, lots of things changing. Jeff Hewitt has asked whether or not each of these EBTs has its own code, and the answer is for the specific services that are funded by Family First, that's MST, FFT, and PCIT, yes, we have a specific code for them. The services that are provided on an outpatient basis are probably just going to be coded as outpatient therapy. We do have DBT providers who are on the CSA provider list. Potomac Behavioral Solutions is one of them. There may be another one, I'm just kind of blanking on the name. And again, my hope is that Inova Keller will get their DBT program for adolescents up and running. Age requirement for FFT, it's for teenagers, and I would have to actually look at the list myself to remind myself of what the age range is for that. I'm sorry to say, but it's on the handout. Okay, anything else that people can think of to ask in the chat? Oh good, we have an answer for FFT. Great. All right, well, I am going to pause here, and I think we're coming to the end of the content that we have for you all today. And on behalf of the CSA program and Patricia and myself, we welcome you all back to school, and hope you all have a wonderful year. We are available to you all, as Patricia was saying, we are all telecommuting. We have not closed at all. One day we were in the office and one day we were at home, and it was all seamless. So we are continuing to serve you all and support you all in your work. And please let us know if you have any questions or if we can do anything to support you in your work this year. Thank you all very much.
Janet, I'm sorry, there was just one question. Dorothy Van Gordon said she had a question. I don't know if you want to take it before we sign off.
Let me scroll.
See,
I put it in the chat.
Yeah, I think I missed it.
It says, I assume transportation is only available through CSA when you are using CSA, not for Medicaid families. You are correct.
Well, when Medicaid is paying this for the treatment, Medicaid transportation would be available. So Logisticare, I believe, was the last time I heard who the provider was. But if the child has Medicaid, the service is funded by Medicaid, then you can get a Medicaid transport to that service. You also could, ask us if there's an unusual circumstance, if a child is CSA eligible. And remember, our eligibility for special ed wraparound is for children who are in the CSS sites. So we are here to serve kids. We have non-mandated funds. We have a variety of funding. And I think all of us are really aware that our children and families are really struggling because of COVID. And you all as school system folks have been a huge source of referrals for us. And we want to make sure that you're getting the information about, when you see a family, you're welcome to refer. And also, I think you might have gotten that notice about CPS, that we're all really hoping to continue to connect children and families to as much support as we can possibly offer them during this really challenging time. Okay, anything else, Patricia, that you can think of before we sign off?
No, I think that's it. We will, I showed you that website where the EVT information is, so we will be posting this video once we make sure that it looks okay, so that will be available to everybody. And I thank you for your time.
Great. All right, we're signing off. Thank you all.
Bye.